A growing number of Republicans are calling on President Trump to fire special counsel Robert Mueller after a series of damaging revelations about the agents on the Russia probe. This did not sit well with Chuck Schumer, who sounded the alarm on firing Mueller.
If the president were to fire special counsel Mueller, our country would face a constitutional crisis.
The president told reporters he's not going to fire Mueller. So if the special counsel stays, where does this investigation go now that so many questions have been raised about his credibility? Let me bring in Dan Henninger. He is the Wall Street Journal's deputy editorial page editor. Number one, there are so many of these Democratic lawmakers, Schumer, Warner, I think even Gutierrez in Congress is talking about what we're going to do if President Trump fires Mueller. I just think they're trying to egg him on, quite frankly.
I think there's something to that, Dagan. I mean, they sound as though they'll be disappointed if he doesn't fire Robert Mueller. And as the president said Sunday, no, he doesn't intend to do that. And I think that's the right choice. I mean, there's no point at this point in the game firing Mueller and trying to just replace him with something else. That doesn't really solve the problem of the underlying conflicts inside this investigation. I mean, let's roll back to what we're really talking about here, Dagan, from the beginning. This all started in January of this year, 11 months ago, when stories started to appear in all the media citing intelligence sources suggesting there was collusion between the Trump campaign or President Trump and the Russians, right? Those stories ran for about 6 months. Then we get Robert Mueller appointed. In fact, this story has not advanced very much at all from the original suggestions that there was collusion. I think if there had been anything more there, it would have been leaked to the press by now, or the FBI would be talking about it. Instead, we have reached a kind of state of gridlock with this story. And now questions are being asked about the FBI's role in all this, their role with the Steele dossier. And I think at least half the American people are saying to themselves, what is going on here with our major national security institutions, like the FBI and the Department of Justice?
Well, so Andrew McCabe, the deputy FBI director, gave testimony in front of the House Intelligence Committee. And now it looks like, because there were so many inconsistencies that appeared during this testimony. One thing, McCabe was asked about when he learned about that the dossier had been funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee. He claimed he couldn't recall, but then there were reported existence of documents with McCabe's own signature on them establishing his knowledge of the dossier's financing and the provenance. See, this started last year, and I was sitting with Maria Bartiromo at the DNC when this narrative first developed after those emails were leaked about trying to establish some connection between then candidate Trump and Russia. Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia. Right. At the same time, this dossier had been put together, and this was right around the time, I think, that Steele had been talking to the FBI about what they had uncovered, and come to find out that Bruce Orr, who worked in the Justice Department, his wife helped put this together. There are just too many coincidences for there not to, at least for there not to be investigated.
Well, too many unexplained coincidences, and really too many half-baked coincidences. I mean, the dossier, the Christopher Steele dossier, sits at the middle of this story. And in this testimony the other day, it has been reported that Mr. McCabe was asked about the veracity of the dossier, and he defended the FBI's due diligence in investigating its veritability. But when he was asked for specifics, he said, for instance, Carter Page, Trump campaign worker, met with the Russians. Well, we know that. Carter Page has admitted that. And there's been nothing more beyond that point. And so how can you do anything other than step away from something like Mr. McCabe's testimony and say, what are you talking about? Don't you have anything more based on this dossier than that? This undermines the credibility of Christopher Steele and that dossier.
Real quick, Dan, how does this end? We do have the Justice Inspector General putting a report together, Michael Horowitz, that comes out. But is that going to be the end of this?
I do not think it would be a good thing if the credibility of the FBI were severely damaged by this investigation. And I think people inside the FBI are worried about that, especially Robert Mueller, who used to be the director. If that is the case, then I think Mr. Mueller should wrap this up as quickly as possible, for better or worse, rather than let it drag on as the FBI's credibility erodes.
Yeah, it's not Donald Trump damaging the credibility of the FBI. It's the actions of some agents and how they were and how they were handling themselves. Dan, great to see you.
Good to be with you, Dan
Henning.
So secret meetings on the Hill led by House Intel Chair Devin Nunes. They're digging into concerns about corruption in the Department of Justice and in the FBI with regard to the Trump investigation. So today, FBI Director Andrew McCabe was back on the Hill before the House Judiciary Committee, and demoted DOJ official Bruce Orr, he was in front of the Senate Intel Committee today being questioned behind closed doors as well. So they have a lot of questions for these individuals, and they've been grilling them all week, essentially. Ellison Barber joins us now live with this report from Washington. Hi, Ellison.
Hi, Martha. That's right. Andrew McCabe was back on the Hill again today. He was just there earlier this week, but this time he was meeting with investigators working on a joint investigation involving two House committees, Judiciary and Oversight. The chairman of the House Oversight and Judiciary committees sent a letter to the Department of Justice Tuesday night, not long after McCabe finished his 7-hour testimony with the House Intelligence Committee on Tuesday. They said they wanted McCabe and others to be available for, quote, transcribed interviews. One Republican member of the House Judiciary Committee says McCabe's interview on Tuesday was inadequate.
We have some very fundamental questions here, which are very easy to answer. How did the Russia investigation start in July of 2016? Was it because of the Trump dossier that was funded by the Democrats and compiled by Christopher Steele? Did the FBI pay Christopher Steele for that dossier? If he's not capable of answering the questions, he's got no business being the deputy director of the FBI.
The DOJ agreed to make McCabe available to the House committees today, but only in a classified setting. In a letter, an assistant attorney general said, quote, Mr. McCabe will not be in a position to discuss matters that are within the scope of the investigation of special counsel Robert Mueller. The letter then went on to say, quote, we respectfully request that the interview transcripts not be made public. On the other side of the Hill today, also behind closed doors, the Senate Intelligence Committee heard from Bruce Orr, a former Associate Deputy Attorney General who was demoted, as Fox News exclusively reported, after he had undisclosed meetings with two operatives tied to the firm that produced the Trump dossier. Democrats are warning that all of this is part of an effort to discredit the investigation into Russia's involvement in the 2016 election.
What's going on behind those closed doors? We all know what's going on behind. It's not a search for the truth. It's a search to undermine the legitimacy of Mueller's investigation.
Now, sources told Fox News that during Tuesday's interview, McCabe said he could not remember when he learned that the Clinton campaign and the DNC had paid for that now notorious anti-Trump dossier. We're told that he was pressed on that issue again by Republicans in the meetings today. Martha?
Ellison, thank you very much. Here now with more, Mark Thiessen, American Enterprise Institute scholar and a Fox News contributor, and Juan Williams, co-host of The Five and a Fox News political analyst. Devin Nunes is at the center of a lot of this story today. It came out in Politico saying that he has been huddled, sort of secretly for weeks was the phrase that they used. And they're getting together to try to figure out whether or not there is corruption at the highest levels of the DOJ and the FBI. And then, on the other side of the fence, Mark, you have, huge criticism of Devin Nunes. Asking why he's back on the scene. He removed himself from the Russia investigation. We all remember the moment when he went quickly over to the White House to sort of share with them what he knew about this dossier. So what do you make of his involvement and these supposed secret meetings?
Well, I don't know about his involvement, but I know that there's absolutely nothing wrong with Congress investigating this. Look, you've had senior members of the Justice Department fired from their jobs and disciplined for improper conduct. There's an ongoing internal Inspector General investigation at the Justice Department into that improper conduct, and Congress, as a co-equal branch of government, would be abdicating its responsibility if it didn't look into this. None of that, by the way, undermines the credibility of the Mueller probe at all, because it was Bob Mueller, it was Mueller who, when he found out about Peter Stork and his virulent anti-Trump emails, he fired him. So he did the right thing, but he had something to fire someone for. He did, and it's not just him. It's also Bruce Orr, who was a senior official, who was meeting with Trump, with the Fusion GPS, married to a Fusion GPS person, met with Christopher Steele, who was the guy behind the Clinton-funded Trump dossier and didn't tell his superiors. He's also been disciplined. So you've got people being disciplined, internal investigation. Why would Congress not look into this? It would be an application of responsibility.
I hear, sort of hyperventilating in some corners about the fact that these questions are even being asked. And there are people who are currently in the FBI and people who are not too long out of the FBI who are so unhappy with what they have seen going on from the Clinton investigation to now. So this idea that it impugns the integrity to even ask these questions, to even say, wait a minute, is there bias involved with Clinton? Was she given, was she sort of softball handled, and was Trump sort of jumped on before he even had a chance to get into the White House? Why are these questions that are not even allowed, we're not even allowed to ask in terms of impugning their credibility?
Well, you can ask whatever you like, but I mean, what exactly is Devin Nunes investigating at this point? We've had Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General. We've had Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, who's in charge of the Mueller probe. We've had Christopher Wray, who's head of the FBI, all say there is nothing right now of any significance that would undermine what Robert Mueller is doing. And instead, Devin Nunes, who, as you pointed out, Martha, was earlier involved and had to recuse himself and now is back in charge, is conducting an investigation solely among Republicans. No Democrats allowed in the room, no participation. Yeah. So it's not in keeping with a true congressional investigation. This is a partisan attack.
I have a feeling that Mark will, echo this thought. But the problem is that, the testimony that you talked about with Rosenstein and with Andrew McCabe and Christopher Wray, that was all in front of congressional committees who can't get any information that they want. They're going to have to subpoena to get the actual information about the dossier. Mark, correct?
That's absolutely true. And look, again, they didn't say that there was nothing wrong or there was nothing done improper. What they said was repeatedly, I can't comment on that because there's an internal investigation being done by the Inspector General. So, I mean, I worked on Capitol Hill for 7 years. When there's an internal investigation by the Inspector General, when people have been fired and demoted for political bias and for doing things that were contrary to conduct, Congress investigates that. And there were Democrats questioning McCabe today, and there were Democrats questioning Orr today. So this whole focus on Nunes is a distraction. There is some serious misconduct going on, and we need to get to the bottom of it, just like we need to get to the bottom of it if there was any kind of collusion between Trump and Russia.
Mark, I mean, you should be specific. What misconduct? In fact, what we see here is an effort
Fusion
by
GPS
Nunes
without telling
to muddy the waters, to stir things up, so that people don't pay attention to the relationship between Russia and the Trump campaign. I think all these people that came in today are to be credited. They're not running away from anybody. They're not taking the fifth. They're not claiming lawyer-client privilege. They are cooperating with whatever.
Point. There was some concern that Andrew McCabe would not even come, or that he would, figure out, or maybe get private counsel and leave the FBI.
Yeah, right.
He's there. He's answering the questions. They've been back twice this week, and it's a point well taken. Mark and Juan, thank you very much. Good to see you guys tonight. Merry Christmas to you, too. So General Jack Keane with a warning for everyone tonight. He says time is running out and a showdown with North Korea is coming in 2018. And the United Nations gives a big thumbs down to the White House decision on Jerusalem.